They did not achieve purity by meditating, but by studying mathematics and science. The ultimate union with the divine was said to follow from an understanding of the order of the universe, and the key to understanding the universe was to understand mathematics. Beatitude is the knowledge of the perfection of the numbers of the soul. This belief is expressed very succinctly in the motto, all is number. Do we have any business this week? This episode?
Define we.
I
don't.
Or me.
You might. I don't know.
We is you and me. I'm not talking to I am talking to our listeners.
Does
but if
the
they have business, then I don't care.
As an entity? I don't know.
No, not really. We don't have any new patrons. Boo.
Sad.
This is normally where we would do that. But we do appreciate all of our existing patrons, so there's that.
You know what? That's always good to say. God,
all right.
This is terrible.
Yeah, I know. This is awful. This is like our worst intro. Hey, everyone. This is a podcast.
Hey, no one pays us money.
Let's do the thing where we talk.
All right, let's go. Let's do this. You're doing the episode today.
I'm
What's
Chris.
going on? You're Chris. I'm Kayla. This is Culture Just Weird.
Data scientist / game designer / podcaster.
I'm a writer. I feel like we haven't done that in a little bit.
No, we totally have. Haven't we?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever.
That's who we are.
That's us. And let's get into it. Hang on, one sec though. Hang on.
What are you doing?
1 second. Just I just want to do this real quick.
Why are you eating kidney beans?
You want some beans?
No, I was wondering why there was kidney beans in a little thing in the fridge. And I thought that
I thought I hid them from you.
I saw them today, and I thought that they were really old, and so I just put them back in the fridge. It didn't say anything.
No, I figured I put them in the back. I was like, either she'll not know she'll not see them, or she'll see them and be like, "Oh, those must be ancient. I'm not gonna touch them. I'm just gonna let them continue to age
I could have
gracefully."
thrown them away.
I'm glad you didn't.
Why are you eating beans on the show?
I don't know. Why not? I like beans.
You don't, though.
What's wrong with you?
I like beans.
Kayla, you're distracting us from the topic, okay? Let's get going. Today's topic has...
No.
What?
Why are you eating beans on the show?
Kayla, I like beans, okay? Again, let's try to stay on topic here. We're talking today about a cult, a cult or just weird, that has a bit of an educational theme.
Is it beans?
No, it's not. No, it's an educational theme. I don't know why you keep focusing on the beans.
I'm so focused on the beans.
Educational theme. Like grade school education, I mean.
Are we going to plant a bean into a little cup of water and soil,
with the
and then we watch the bean grow?
No, Kayla. Educational, like grade school educational. Try to stay with me here.
Okay,
so to make sure that we nail that theme, I'm going to start you off here with a short little quiz.
Oh, God.
Like basically the same we do on every show, right, where we ask a question, except this time there are 3 questions instead of 1. And there's right or wrong answers this time. It's not just like, what do you think about X? So you ready for a little quiz? You ready to get triggered back to grade school?
I'm all ready. I have dreams about how I missed a math class and I have to go back to elementary school.
You're going to love this episode then.
No, I will not.
All right, let's go. First question. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to describe someone to you, and you're going to tell me who I'm talking about. Got it?
Okay.
Simple enough?
Sure.
Okay. This guy lived in what we'd call ancient times, roughly 2,000 years ago. He had a group of followers who essentially revered him. After all, there are stories of miracles he was able to perform here in the real world. Little, if anything, has survived of his own writings. Actually, nothing has survived of his own writings. There are no writings that he did himself. Instead, most of what we know about him and his works come from his disciples and later adherents. And to be honest, it is thought that a lot of the miracle-working stories maybe were sort of added in later by these disciples that were creating his historical record, like creative embellishment type of thing. You know how it goes. Anyway, after attaining what we'll say is a bit too much influence, he was noticed by the dominant Greco-Roman social order of his time and persecuted and killed. Anything else, let's see, that would help? Oh, yeah. Legend has it that his birth and the importance of his life was prophesied to his parents when they were traveling. And also probably the son of a deity. Any guesses?
I do have a guess.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're leading me towards something specific
What?
that is
No.
not going to be the actual answer.
Kayla, why would no, I'm very straightforward. I'm not, no.
So you're clearly describing Jesus Christ.
What?
But I don't think the answer is Jesus Christ.
Okay, well, you have to give me a final answer.
I mean,
so
that's
that
my answer, but that's not right.
Kayla, no. How could you think that I was talking about Jesus? You totally obviously saw all of that coming.
I know you at this point.
And I also telegraphed it big time. But no, that's not Jesus I'm talking about. I'm actually talking about Pythagoras.
Wait, seriously?
Pythagoras. Yeah, so that's the first question.
Wait, hold on. Wait, no, go back. Pythagoras was the son of a deity?
Yeah, or maybe the deity himself. It's not super clear. It's
Says who? How come I never learned that?
Apollo, as a matter of fact.
Oh, I don't like him.
You don't like Apollo?
He was
Kinda
not
lame.
a very nice man.
Oh, he was. None of them were nice men, Kayla. They were all shitheads.
He was pretty bad, though.
Well, anyway, that may have been Pythagoras, or maybe Pythagoras was his son, or maybe both. You know, maybe it's like one of those weird Trinity things where it's both.
I don't know what's going on.
That was just the first question in your quiz.
Okay.
Maybe let's see if this one's easier.
What do the beans have to do with it?
I don't know why you keep focusing on the beans. All right, we've talked about this guy on the show before. Same format. I'm going to describe someone. You tell me who they are.
Is it Jesus Christ again?
This dude was a crazy cult leader, lived in a compound with his followers just outside of a small town. Again, like in the previous description, the dominant culture of the time, the dominant religion, really did not care for him and his group, so governmental forces eventually got together, decided it was time to raid the place. Oops, they set the compound on fire, killing everyone except for a few survivors. Who was this man?
Okay, so again, you're
What?
clearly describing David Koresh
Am I?
and the incident at Waco, but I believe that that's not the correct answer again.
Why would you believe that? I mean, you just have to tell me what you think.
You're describing Waco is what I will say.
No. Talking about Pythagoras again, Kayla.
There it is.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll tell you what. Third one, I saved the easiest for last, since those first two were kind of tricksy. I apologize. All right. So if you don't get this one, you're 0 for 3, though. So no pressure. I know you're not really a mathy person, but everyone learns this one in school. The square of the hypotenuse of a right triangle is equal to the sum of the squares of its sides. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Who was the inventor of this theorem? Do you need me to tell you the name of the theorem? Would that help you?
So I know that as the Pythagorean theorem, but
Okay.
I have a suspicion that you're about to twist it all up for me.
The first answer and the second answer were both Pythagoras. Rule of threes, right? Also, it's called the Pythagorean theorem.
Okay.
What's your answer?
I already said it's the Pythagorean theorem.
I mean, it is the Pythagorean theorem. I asked you who invented it.
I said Pythagoras.
No, unfortunately. No, it's not. You're 0 for 3, man. Like, who was your math teacher in middle school?
A lady who looked like the honeycomb mascot.
Well, honeycomb mascot lady, would be very disappointed in you. I mean,
She was
can't believe you went
disappointed in
0
me.
for 3 on your quiz.
She was disappointed in me then, too. It's fine.
So, yeah, no, Pythagoras did not create the Pythagorean theorem.
I don't understand.
Okay. Well, to be fair, I should say most likely he did not. The current historical thinking on this man and his followers that we're talking about today, Pythagoras, is that most of the stuff we attribute directly to him probably was developed by one of his followers, or even that he maybe inherited some math from one of his predecessors, and he was just an influential enough figure that all this stuff just kind of got like attributed to him, and the real truth is lost to history.
Well, that's no fair.
These things are pretty common, though, in the historical record, right? Like, unless it's very recent, and even then, you're probably crediting the quote-unquote wrong person when you talk about a named thing like the Pythagorean theorem. And I use air quotes here, quote-unquote wrong person, because crediting is like a fuzzy thing anyway. Like, even in the present moment, especially with something like mathematics, where one person's work builds on another, trying to pinpoint the invention of something, like, a squared plus b squared equals c squared onto one person, as if they just like ripped it straight from their muse fully formed, is kind of inaccurate anyway. So I think it would be equally inaccurate to try and completely discredit and say, well, he didn't invent it. Like, he was probably involved in some way. But historians now think that most likely he's more of like an Elon Musk, where he gets credit for a lot of inventions and smart thinky stuff, when he's really just the guy at the top and generates a lot of fanboys.
I am sick of that type.
Well, it's been around at least since Pythagoras' time.
And probably
which was like
forever.
500 BC.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of fanboys, Pythagoras had fanboys. Oh,
I've
man.
heard this.
So you might remember from that first question in your quiz that I said that followers attributed miracles to him.
Yes.
So like we mentioned, he was supposedly the son of Apollo, or also maybe Apollo. One of the things that they thought justified this, like what made him the son of Apollo, was the fact that, or the reported on fact, the legend, that he had a golden thigh.
I'm sorry?
Like, his followers thought literally that his thigh was made of gold, like the metal.
Why did they think this?
I don't know, but they did. And
I feel like that's easily verifiable. You just
well, he's always wearing robes, you know.
You pull the robe up and you go, "Oh, look, this thigh is made of flesh."
You just do like a drive-by pantsing.
If someone's claiming that they have a golden thigh,
I don't know if he claimed it or if people said it or both. I don't know.
That's a really weird rumor.
It was also said that he had the ability to predict earthquakes. There's a few other things I didn't even write here. Like, apparently he could like talk to animals, some people thought. And we'll get to this a bit more, but the celestial bodies were said by the Pythagoreans to make music, which they were super into music. We'll get to that. But only Pythagoras himself could hear this celestial music, because, don't you know, common people couldn't hear it because they were all so used to the sound that it like didn't even register anymore, except for him. He had like the super hearing or whatever.
I don't like him anymore. He sounds very full of himself. He sounds like an elitist. He sounds like possibly like there's some diagnosable personality conditions in there.
I mean, he just sounds like Apollo to me. This sounds all pretty like Apollo-esque.
Did Apollo have a golden thigh?
I don't know why they thought that made him Apollo-like. Maybe like it was gold is Apollo's metal. I don't know.
It's just a really weird
It is weird.
thing.
I didn't see anything that said like that connected the dots other than people thought he had a golden thigh, and that was justification for him being Apollo.
Which thigh?
His chicken thigh. There was also apparently a lot of justification being thrown around in Pythagorean circles for like words and deeds. And it went something like, quote, "the master says," like, why is this XYZ thing true? Why are we doing this thing? Oh, the master says. End of discussion.
So are we here today to determine if this is a cult or just weird? Because clearly this is a cult.
Hey, okay, well, there's other criteria.
Golden thigh.
Kayla.
Golden thigh.
Golden thigh. First, okay, he
If somebody
probably didn't actually have a golden thigh.
to have
I hate
a
break it
golden
to you.
thigh, they're definitely trying to form a cult.
All right, fine. Charismatic leader, check. But where did this guy come from, and how did he get to be so famous and influential? Well, this is where I would totally give you like a short bio of the guy. But the problem is, as his Wikipedia article puts it, is that those details are clouded by legend. Oh, by the way, total side note, I finally made my first Wikipedia edit ever.
Oh my God, what was it?
It was on the Pythagoreanism article.
What did you correct?
It was just this stupid, like, it was like somebody used the word spurned when they meant spurred, and I was like, I'm going to correct that. And I don't know why. I never correct that stuff. I never have done that before. And then this time I was like, I'm going to do it.
All right.
So,
very proud of you.
Little fun fact.
Everybody go to the Pythagoras Wikipedia page and behold Chris's
Pythagoreanism.
art.
There's a page for Pythagoras himself, and then for Pythagoreanism.
What's Pythagoreanism?
Well, that's what we're here to talk about today. Clouded by legend is like an understatement. We have no writings of Pythagoras himself, and it's thought he just didn't produce any, or even contemporary accounts by other people.
So just no one was writing stuff down?
No one was writing stuff down. The first time he shows up in the historical record is like 100 years after he lived.
What?
He starts getting written about in Greece. And
By
by then,
who?
he's already somewhat of a legendary figure. A bunch of people. We are somewhat certain of a few things. Like, he was probably born on Samos. In fact, his full title is Pythagoras of Samos. So, probably was born there.
Probably Samos.
Quoting his bio article again, modern scholars disagree regarding Pythagoras' education and influences, but they do agree that around 530 BC, he traveled to Croton in southern Italy, where he founded a school in which initiates were sworn to secrecy and lived a communal ascetic lifestyle. Okay, so maybe that's whet your appetite now for knowing what the deal was with his school and followers, yeah?
Yes, I need to know.
Okay, so yeah, we got the sworn secrets thing. There's that.
This is like my goal in life. This is what I want to have happen to me.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's very cool.
Somebody invite
and
me into your secret society.
So got the communal lifestyle, check. Ascetic, so like when you go become a Pythagoreanist, you get rid of all your belongings, check. There was also allegedly a pretty elaborate initiation ritual.
Oh, God bless.
So right off the bat, this was not like a low bar of entry kind of place. They didn't discriminate, as far as I can tell, and in fact, several of the sources I read said that Pythagoreanism treated women as essentially as equals and produced several women philosophers.
Damn.
Pythagoreanism was kind of like a philosopher factory. It just like kind of churned them out. So they were very welcoming in terms of gender, but we're still a closed group. Like you actually had to be selected, supposedly on the basis of, quote, merit and discipline.
Oh,
they
God,
were big
I don't have
into
either of those things.
Yeah, you're screwed. Because they were big into discipline. And this is kind of what I mean by elaborate initiation ritual. They supposedly had to undergo a 5-year initiation period.
I'm sorry?
Where they had to listen to teachings of the school in silence. 5 years of silence.
Wait, like, okay, I have a lot of questions.
Okay. The answers to all of them are probably unclear. No historical record.
So the 5 years, they are spent entirely in silence, or whilst listening to lectures, they are silent?
I had the same question doing my readings, and unclear. No historical record.
5 years is a very long time.
It is a very long time.
I would not.
The way I interpret it,
what if you don't want to be in it anymore?
The way I interpret it was 5 years of like silence, like monkish silence.
I'm just saying 5 years is a long time to be initiated into anything.
Yeah.
Because like you might hit 4 years and you're like, oof.
Yeah. I'd be like, you know what? This is not for me. Actually, for what it's worth, and that's one of our criteria, is how easy is it to exit. Supposedly, you're just like free to go. No harm, no foul. You could just be like, you know what? I'm peacing out.
I mean, I guess they're trying to figure out who's worthy, who really wants it. If you don't want it after 3 years, then you don't want it.
I got the impression that it was very not recruity. It was very like selective, right? It was kind of on the opposite end of that.
5 years, though?
Yeah, 5 years.
Okay.
So that's the initiation. Once you were in, there were also certain behavioral and ethical parameters as well. Among the things I read, and again, this is all clouded by the mists of time and lack of contemporary records, but among the things I read were wearing of specific garb. Didn't get into any detail about that, but I guess it included a prohibition on wearing rings.
Well, was that a big problem?
I don't
Back in the day?
They had a lot of like idiosyncrasy type things where it's like, I don't know if it was like, was that a problem back in the day? Or was it like they have very weird specific stuff?
Or just like Pythagoras had a bee in his bonnet about rings?
Yeah. So it was said that they slept sparingly, whatever sparingly means.
No, see, I'm tired of this shit. I'm tired of this shit back then. I'm tired of this shit now.
Hustle culture, baby. He invented hustle culture.
You need to sleep, and if you don't need to sleep, good for you. Everybody,
but they were weird monks.
Everybody has an amount that their body needs, and if you try to alter that and force it into a little box, it's not good. And we need to stop being like, oh, if you really wanted to be a CEO, you'd only sleep 4 hours. No.
Well, apparently you need to go back into like 500 BC to really get that at the root.
Sick of this shit.
They practiced monogamy only, which that's pretty normal, I guess. That doesn't seem weird.
Or was that not the norm at the time?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I assume that it was, but I don't
know.
No alcohol.
Okay.
And then there was like a whole suite of what we'd call superstitions. They were supposed to never take the high road.
What does that mean? Like literally walk up on a high road, or like never be the bigger person?
I'm not 100% sure what it means, but I can't mean be the bigger person because that's like a modern idiom. So I think it literally is referring to like, don't take the higher road. I don't know why.
Was this a problem? Again,
This is what I'm saying.
Understand ancient life.
Just wait. Never supposed to touch white roosters.
Well, I mean, they're kind of mean.
White roosters are mean?
Any chicken fowl.
Yeah, well, they're only supposed to not touch white ones.
Okay.
So when they hear thunder, gotta touch the ground. Hear thunder, touch ground. Gotta do that.
That feels okay, right, and smart. Like
it does.
I don't know. Maybe they thought it was somewhat protective from like lightning.
I think it feels like a game I would have played when I was 8. Oh, touch ground if you hear thunder, break your mother's back. Also, never put a knife into a fire. Like, never stir a fire around with a knife.
Okay, done. I could definitely... I've never touched a white rooster. I could touch the ground. Who cares?
All of these things were clearly problems in ancient Greece and Italy.
I have never stuck a knife into a fire. Like, I could join. I can't be quiet, though.
Okay, what about this one you might be a little more familiar with? They had a very rigid, very interesting dietary practice. Strict vegetarianism.
I have heard that. I knew that the only things I knew about Pythagoras outside of the theorem that he apparently totally did not come up with was that he was a vegetarian and that he was super into music.
Yeah. Yeah, no meat. Or beans.
Well,
no beans.
Oh, I'm out.
No beans.
I'm out.
Yes, veggies, no beans.
I'm sorry, but why?
Oh, I am so glad you asked. Okay, so again, major caveat here. We don't know for certain, but there are several legitimate speculations. Before I get to the specific bean-related reasoning, I want to give a little bit of bean-related context.
My favorite kind of context.
Bean-related.
I am a bean fiend.
You know, as a kid, I used to think it was human bean.
Everybody thought that.
It's not human bean. I thought it was human bean. I'm like, why are humans beans?
Kind of look like little beans in your fetus.
Okay, so apparently a variety of ancient and even not so ancient cultures viewed beans as magical.
I mean, okay, to be fair, they are extremely magical. They are a nutritional powerhouse. You got protein and carb, fiber, all mixed up into one little bean-shaped bean.
Bean-shaped bean? Are there beans that aren't bean-shaped? I guess they're probably
garbanzo beans are not really shaped like beans.
That's a good point.
In my humble opinion.
No, you're right.
They can help lower your cholesterol. They can help with blood sugar regulation. They are the best.
They're the beans' knees.
You can dry them. You can undry them. They're great. I love a bean. They are magical. I agree with the ancients.
You're like the Bubba Gump of beans instead of shrimp.
Oh, we could talk for days about the different ways you can eat a bean.
So yeah, I mean, you're right, but like supernaturally magical too. Like, you know, the magic beans in Jack and the Beanstalk?
I do remember those beans.
That's kind of like a holdover from some of these beliefs.
Explain to me why. Explain to me why.
Well, I think you actually hit on some of it, but beans were also like a really hardy crop. Like, I read in Scientific American that in ancient Egypt, they actually revered beans partially because they were like so reliable as a crop, like even during like famines and whatnot.
Gotta get those beans.
But holy men were not allowed to eat them. So it was like,
why?
One of those like, they're magical, but it's also like bad mojo to consume them type deals. Kind of like the spice melange in Dune, you know? There's some current thinking that because beans can have medical benefits and side effects. So like one benefit being, at least for fava beans, apparently they can help. There's some chemical in them. They go very
well with a
nice
Chianti.
Thank you.
And also and some liver.
But apparently they also like have some chemical thing in them that I didn't quite understand, but it like helps prevent malaria.
Really? See, magical little bean.
But also, if you have a particular genetic marker, beans can be somewhat poisonous to you.
Yeah, they got that stuff in them that I think it's like why you shouldn't eat them raw.
Yeah. So the speculation goes that like these religious views and prohibitions on beans were from this like very real biological power that they had, either to like be a curative or to actually hurt you. Anyway, so that's a possibility with the Pythagoreans as well. Perhaps Pythagoras, he himself, was allergic to beans or whatever it is, and he was like, okay, no beans for anybody then.
That sounds like a power trip.
But if it was, I mean, we're stating a lot of this as like, he's on this power trip with all this top-down stuff.
He was clearly a crazy despot.
First of all, again, not to keep reiterating this, but no contemporary sources. Second of all, like it's unclear whether some of this stuff was like, oh, the master doesn't eat beans, so we don't eat beans, right? Versus like the despotic type thing. So don't think that it's definitely that. I don't know. Okay, so that's just one possibility. That's the like sort of realism explanation post facto. But for them, it wasn't merely just an abstract prohibition. Oh no, Kayla. You see, Pythagoreans believed that beans contained men's souls. The souls are in beans.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's the other thing about beans that I really love, is that when you eat them, you're consuming the souls of men.
Yeah. I think, actually, wait, that makes me right about human beings.
It does make you right about human beings.
Holy shit.
Human beings.
I didn't even think about that when I was writing this. This just came to me. Whoa, my mind's blown.
But why?
Childhood me, you are right.
Why did they believe this?
That's just something that they maybe believed.
And then why did you open the show by shoveling a spoonful of beans into your mouth, knowing very well that they could be the souls of men? It could be men's souls.
Well, because I like to consume souls of men. And also, like, middle finger to Pythagoras. Come on, this guy sounded like a
despot.
Despot. Again, this is all ultra fuzzy. That's another possible answer. We know that the no bean thing was likely true, but the why of it has like a bunch of possible answers, as we've been talking about. Here is what one commenter had to say in a comment on an article in classicalwisdom.com. Quote, while I cannot prove that he was accurate, H.L. Sumner claims that the Pythagoreans had no specific objection to beans in their diet. Rather, the beans represented political intrigue. Apparently, beans were used in ancient Greece as a ballot system. White beans represented a yes vote, and black beans a no vote. Thus, Pythagoras was urging his followers to not get up in politics or government.
There's too much tied up with these beans.
I know. There's one more thing, too. I will say that the don't get tied up in politics thing does track with how they met their end. Okay, so this last thing. You know how ancient people, and like even kind of today, really, we like kind of associate like the breath with the soul.
Yeah.
Like your final breath is like your soul leaving your body. Breathing is a soulful activity. That's just sort of like a thing.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it is also speculated that Pythagoras may have put 2 and 2 together. That's a math joke. And said, well, if the breath is the soul, then why wouldn't that be true for both ends of the body?
Oh my God.
So when you fart, you are farting out part of your soul. Ergo, no beans in the diet because you don't want to fart out too much of your soul.
I have no soul.
I'm completely soulless at this point.
I am absolutely soulless. How do I even still have anything coming out at this point?
We're both soulless people.
Second, is this speculation or is this, how likely is this belief? Not necessarily this is why you don't eat beans, but how likely is it that he thought soul farts?
So in the milieu of a bunch of speculation about a man's life who we have no contemporary records of, this strikes me as just as legitimate as any of the other explanations. This isn't like some random article was like, I bet he thought it was farts. This is like multiple articles said that this is like a very real thing that he probably thought.
Soul farts. Soul farts. What a weird thing. I don't know how to end this. Soul farts.
Yeah. And I mean, that's my preferred explanation, obviously. I kind of don't even really care about the others anymore.
No, I don't remember them. It's just soul farts.
By the way, in doing this research, first of all, Pythagorean farts is now in my browser history.
That's a really good band name.
Yeah, actually.
See, here's the thing. This enrages me. I am enraged because if they had wanted to teach us math in an enjoyable way that we would remember and care about.
Oh, now I'm enraged too.
They should have been teaching. I would have cared so much more about the Pythagorean theorem if you had told me about
the fart theorem.
Fart them. If they had told me about Pythagorean farts.
I know. Listen here, educators. Anyway, doing this research, I also learned about, let's see if I can pronounce this, Machishkapu, the fart god.
Again, why has no one told me any of these things?
Here's a quote from an article on ancientorigins.net entitled, "From Fart Gods to Farting Out One's Soul, the Historic Ritualization of Farts." Quote, "Although Machishkapu existed everywhere, he was best known to the Innu, which were First Nation, this is me saying this, First Nation peoples from northeastern Quebec. He was best known to the Innu as the fart god, and this spirit of the anus conversed with the Innu with great frequency.
I mean, yeah.
Especially while hunting, trapping, fishing, and gathering. Machishkapu was a humorous god, and his popping up was an important source of laughter to the Innu while facing the life-threatening hunt, but he was also thought of as one of the most powerful spirits, able to control the caribou master as well as humans. Machishkapu, literally the fart man, was the most powerful spirit in the Innu world and often roared when the caribou master refused to give the Innu caribou to eat. In other words, didn't eat enough, and then he would roar, quote unquote. You know what that means? Fart. It means you fart. Just making sure you got that.
Thank you.
End quote.
If it is allowed, I am converting.
Yeah, I'm giving the point to the Innu people on this one. I don't want to be worrying about farting my soul out. I prefer it to be the domain of the literally most powerful god in your pantheon.
I mean...
That's my preference. That's why I'm eating beans, Kayla.
I don't believe in a lot.
I'm paying homage to Machishkapu.
I believe in farts.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of feel like I should just end the episode here. The rest of it is kind of an anticlimax compared to this now.
Compared to fart gods.
But I'd be remiss if I didn't explain the rest of the Pythagoreans' beliefs, which I'm pretty good at, not to toot my own horn.
I'm done.
All right, I'll knock this one out first. They were really big on reincarnation.
Oh, okay. I'm back in.
Like core belief big on it.
Okay.
By the way, Greeks would have called reincarnation transmigration of the soul.
Ooh, that's good.
Which is pretty cool sounding. Now, this belief might not come as a surprise because of the vegetarian thing, but from what I could tell in my reading, that's actually not why they were vegetarians.
Oh.
Supposedly they were vegetarian because they just thought it was just the diet that was going to help them achieve physical and spiritual perfection. So not for any self-denial reasons or because they thought they were eating reincarnated souls, although I think they did maybe think that, but literally just for the very practical purpose of no, this is the best diet.
This is the best
diet.
This
is the thing that's going to do the best for us. It was unclear to me what style of reincarnation they believed in exactly, but I think what I sort of zeroed in on was their particular brand of reincarnation surprisingly didn't really include a moral component. If you're good in this life, then in the next life you get to be the guy that holds up the towel when the swimsuit models have to change during a shoot. And if you're bad in this life, then you come back as my toilet seat or whatever. Rather, it was just a very neutral rebirthy notion.
Okay.
Yep, we all just get reincarnated.
Is it just random or?
I don't know if anybody knows how they felt about that, but I think so.
Interesting.
And this wasn't just strange or different compared to Eastern versions. It was actually strange within Greece at the time as well. Apparently, at this time, there was an explosion of similar cults that today we collectively call Orphic because they worshipped Orpheus in some form or fashion. And wouldn't you know, Pythagoreanism was just one of many of these cults that shared extremely similar beliefs and practices. They were all vegetarians, they were all ascetic, they all had the reincarnation thing going. Except for most of the Orphic cults, they believed in sort of the regular kind of goal-oriented reincarnation, where you're trying to be a good little human being so you can eventually reincarnate your soul up the ladder and, get off the treadmill one day. If you became holy enough, then you could transcend into heaven or Olympus or whatever. Anyway, so within that context, Pythagoreanism was kind of the odd duck in terms of their neutral views on reincarnation.
Now, you've used the word cult a few times. But I know, and you know,
old new religious movement,
that you are using the word cult in a specific way. It is not cult in the way that we use it on the podcast traditionally.
Yeah, I'm using it in terms, in this specific case, it's like mystery religion. It's like
Cults, back then, cults just meant the mystery religion of a thing.
right. It was like not necessarily like the standard, like, yep, I believe in the whole pantheon. It was like we have this very specific thing that we believe.
Right.
Like sometimes it was like, oh yeah, it's just Bacchus. It's like it's just him. Or like this Pythagorean stuff where it's like Apollo is involved, but also like they have all these other weird beliefs that don't quite conform to like what the beliefs are of mainstream society.
Right.
And like there were periods of like sort of decline and social change throughout history, and especially in the ancient world, where these types of mystery religions would like just like crop up a lot. Like Christianity was one of those during that time period in Rome, where there were just like a ton of mystery religions. Christianity was one of them, and that was the one that won the race.
Are you calling Christianity
No,
a
no,
cult?
no. We're talking about Pythagorean. No, okay. First of all, I am now a Mushtroykin. What was it? Shit. Won that.
The fart god. The
The fart
man.
god. I'm a believer in the fart man. Second of all, no, Kayla. We're talking about Pythagoras today. Anyway, so yeah, they're not like, it's not. Well,
You're not. All I'm saying is you're not preemptively making a call
I'm not
by
preemptively
using
making
the
the
word
call.
cult. I just want to make that clear.
And I would say like, oh yeah, I mean, it's not like the Branch Davidians, but like also it was because
You said it in the beginning.
Yeah. So like yes and no, I guess is the answer to your question. Anyway, they had neutral views on reincarnation, but that's not to say that they like didn't care about like self-discipline and like self-perfection though, right? Far from it. They were really into that. It was just more of like a in this world thing rather than like a for the next world kind of thing. I mentioned the usual ascetic and dietary stuff and weird sleep practices, but this is kind of my favorite quote about their like disciplinary practice, not disciplinary in terms of like punishment, but like discipline, self-discipline quote from a medium.com blog entry. What distinguished the Pythagoreans was their means of purifying the mind. They did not achieve purity by meditating, but by studying mathematics and science. The ultimate union with the divine was said to follow from an understanding of the order of the universe, and the key to understanding the universe was to understand mathematics. Pythagoras said, "Beatitude is the knowledge of the perfection of the numbers of the soul." This belief is expressed very succinctly in the Pythagoreans' motto, "All is number." End quote.
All is number.
All is number.
All is number. I mean, look, I agree. And again, if somebody had just brought this up during high school, whatever you learned this in, boy, oh boy, would I have been able to do a whole lot better than I did.
Not only do you agree, like everyone kind of, whether they know it or not, agrees.
Sure.
Like that is like one of, if not the most dominant feature of our civilization now.
Math is our most greatest and cool tool to like uncover like the nature of existence and the universe. Like there is nothing closer to the divine.
Yeah, we will get to that. And also, yes, I kind of feel like they had a point here.
All is number.
Yeah. But yeah, also like kind of a unique way of doing the whole like ritual purification thing. But that also brings us to their next core belief, which like we just said, it's kind of the one that we remember them for most in the 20th century now. They fucking loved math. They loved it. Obviously, we talked about the eponymous theorem already, but they also discovered a lot of other things, like the first few Platonic solids. If you don't know what those are, Platonic solid is like a regular polyhedron that has all faces that themselves are regular polygons. So just to be extra clear, a regular polygon is a polygon that has all of its sides of equal length. So like an equilateral triangle is a regular polygon. A square is a regular polygon. If you have a pentagon, like the Pentagon in Washington.
Is a pentagon?
Pentagon, yeah.
The pentagon is the name of the shape.
Pentagon is the shape. Pentagram
Look, man,
is that star thing.
I did not do good in
you
math.
You get a pentagram if you draw lines between all the vertices of a pentagon, though.
Math just made me hot inside.
I know. I knew you'd have some trouble with this episode.
I'm just
okay.
tuning you out right now while you explain the decahedrons to people.
Okay, Platonic...
The polygons.
Spitting now. Platonic solids it's a solid where all of the faces are a regular polygon. So for example, the tetrahedron is a Platonic solid, and that's just like a little four-sided pyramid that all have equilateral triangle faces. You can picture that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a cube. Cube is a platonic solid because it's got squares. For
They
all of its
discovered the
faces.
cube?
Apparently.
Wait, that doesn't make any sense.
I didn't think that made any sense
How do you discover
either.
a cube?
I don't know.
The cube is just, it just exists.
But, like, it doesn't, though.
You cut a piece of...
With what? You cut a piece of what with what?
So
This is 500 BC.
They didn't make planks of wood?
I don't know what they did.
They had circles.
I also don't know exactly what they mean by discovered. I don't know if
The
they mean
wheel
like
existed?
I don't think they discovered that there were like you could cut a board and it looks kind of vaguely cube-like, but I think they discovered the mathematical concept
Okay.
of the cube. Like, hey, we're defining what a cube is. It's this thing. It belongs in this group called the Platonic solids. They also this is one's a little bit easier to kind of grasp, but they discovered the dodecahedron.
I know all about the dodecahedron.
Dodecahedron is
10.
fuck me.
10 sides, right? Or 100?
No, it's 12.
See? That's what I said.
Right. So it's a 12-sided solid, and it has pentagons as each of its faces. And they were like particularly excited about this one because I guess pentagons were like symbols of good health and luck or something in Greece at this time.
Oh, okay.
As an aside, there's only 2 other platonic solids. There's only 5 total, and the other 2 are the octahedron, which kind of looks like a diamond. It's got 8 sides, and the isocahedron, which is your standard like 20-sided die. Anyway, they liked the isocahedron because the pentagons were like all holy and shit, and they had just like a ton of weird stuff like that. Like really specific weird stuff. Like, for example, they had this thing called I'm going to have trouble pronouncing this too. Tetracis? Tetracis? T-E-T-R-A.
They played Tetris?
They played Tetris. T-E-T-R-A-C-T-Y-S. It's that last 4 letters. I'm like, how do you pronounce C-T-Y-S? Tetris?
No idea.
Anyway, it was just a mathematical sort of symbol. That's all it was. Just 4 rows of dots with 1, 2, 3, and 4 arranged in a triangle shape. In fact, it's exactly like bowling pins. In fact, bowling pins are like literally they comprise a tetrasis. I just kind of realized that. So Pythagoreans would probably have viewed bowling, or they would have viewed it as holy or blasphemous, one of the two. Because like, if you combine the Christian crucifix with the Christian Bible, the tetrasis was like that sort of level of importance.
Oh, wow.
To the Pythagoreans. Like they swore oaths on it and like to it, I think.
Okay, these guys were weird.
And they had it displayed in their homes and stuff.
This is too much. There was nothing. There was nothing
worse.
This is what happens when you don't have television.
Cult and just yeah, that's right.
You got to make up weird shit.
They also thought that certain numbers like meant certain things. Like for some reason, the number 1 meant like the world or the universe. 10 was considered the ideal number because, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. So it's the ideal number. Yeah, because that makes it the ideal number.
Wait, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10?
Yeah.
Is that common knowledge?
Yeah, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10.
Since when is that common knowledge? Just knowing that off the top of your head.
Well, they knew that off the top of their head, and then that's what made 10 the ideal number. Doesn't that make sense?
No.
Yeah, it's pretty arbitrary. Like, a lot of their stuff just feels like super arbitrary. They also had a concept of perfect numbers, which are equal numbers that they called perfect are numbers that are equal to the sum of their factors. So, like, if the numbers that multiply to get that number also add to give that number, they call it a perfect number. What's the difference between an ideal number and a perfect number? I have no idea. The number 4 was justice for some reason. So 4 was justice.
Okay, there's like some synesthesia going on in here.
Yeah, I know. I think the 3 meant a bunch of things.
So,
and like,
well, it is a magic number.
Different sources even told me different stuff about this. Like,
this is just starting to sound like Zodiac.
Another source, it kind of was. It totally was. One source said that justice was actually the number 8, not 4. So like total grain of salt.
Okay, well, 8 and 4 are
the
the same number, so it's fine.
That's true. 5 was supposedly like marriage or coupling because it was the sum of 2 and 3, even and odd. And don't you know, evens are female and odds are male.
This is
literally
hold on. Just synesthesia.
It could be the other way around. Could be that evens are male and odds are female. I definitely read it both ways. Depends on the source. Me personally, I've just always felt like even numbers have felt masculine to me and odd numbers feminine. But that's
Why?
just me.
Why? It's probably sexist. It's probably sexism.
Because women are odd.
Is it that? Is it because men are all like logical and like just totally squared off, and ladies are crazy and chaotic? Extra numbers, extra digits hanging out.
Yeah,
they're crazy chaos.
I think you're right. Yeah,
emotional.
How does it feel to you?
Which is which?
Yeah.
None of them feel like anything. It's all.
You don't have enough synesthesia, then, I guess.
No, the problem is that. You can't you can't box people in like that.
I absolutely can, and
some
I did.
People are going to be 2s and 4s and 3s and 5s. Why?
Yeah, everybody is a sum or multiplication of other numbers, but the numbers themselves are masculine and feminine. Huh?
What?
So, like, I have
get on. Yeah,
a bunch of even numbers in myself and a bunch of odd numbers, like my logical and sane bits are male and my crazy bits are female. You said it, not me.
I'm throwing you out the window.
That is not the position of this podcast.
I think we should move on
this
to
podcast,
the next thing.
Culture Just Weird does not have an official position on whether even or odd numbers are male or female. Just to make that clear. And as funny as dumb as this all sounds, it's also not like we don't have our own superstitions about numbers today.
I mean,
13 has a magical power to it in the West.
They don't put 13 on a lot of elevator pads.
Yeah, I know.
They say there's no
like
13th
we make
floor here.
Expensive decisions based on some of this. They do that
and
in
that's
China
just in
with
Western
number 4.
culture, yeah.
4 is very bad luck in China. So, yeah, not quite as silly as we think. Or at least it is silly, but we do it too.
Well, and even like the other way, like I just, people have, people have lucky numbers, or, there's like we've talked about different various superstitions with numbers. Like there's angel numbers now, like 1111 is a big number for people.
We did a whole episode on what was it? The Avogadro numbers?
The Grabavoy codes?
Grabby Boy codes.
Grabby Boy codes.
That's right.
So even when it's not like, this is unlucky, like people have lucky numbers too. That didn't add as much as I was hoping.
That weird gematria stuff is all based on numbers
Gematria is
right?
all based on numbers, yes.
Ugh. Anyway, here's another weird one, speaking of specific numbers. This is less like superstitious weird, though, and more like it twists our modern brain around a little bit. But Pythagoras didn't consider 1 or 2 to be numbers.
I'm done with math forever.
Numbers began with the number 3 onward.
No, they didn't. They clearly didn't. 1, 2, number.
3 and on were numbers. 1 and 2 are just building blocks that you use to make numbers.
It doesn't matter what you do. I will always fail math. I'm mad.
And it sounds weird to us, but it actually kind of took a while for humanity to extend their consideration of numbers to include the number 1. And there are holdovers of this today. Sometimes the number 1 is simply called the unit or unity. Like
where and when?
The word unit is synonymous with 1.
In what context?
Have you ever heard like unit square or unit circle? Have you heard unit circle? Do you remember that from trig?
No, I didn't take trig. Wait, did I?
I don't know.
Is that sine, cosine, tangent?
Well, a unit square is just yeah, that's right.
Okay, I was good at that.
There you go. And you remember using the unit circle for that?
No.
The unit circle is just a circle with radius 1. We don't call it the 1 circle, we call it the unit circle. So there's some holdovers of thinking of the number 1 is not really a number, but it's just a base.
Building block.
We also have a word for 2, couple, but we start to drop off after that. Like the word few is vague.
Oh, like thruple doesn't exist?
All right, as of like a few years ago, we had finally got a word for 3. That was very recent though.
And then after that, it's all polycule.
As humans, we get 1. 1 is just the unit of something, right? 1 apple, 1 gallon. We get 2. 2 is if you have like a pair of eggs or a pair of cards. After that, though, it's just like, there's some. So the Pythagoreans hadn't really broken through to the idea of like a number line yet on which 1 and 2 belong. But still, credit where credit is due. They are basically considered to have invented math as we know it in the West, the way we think of it today. Basically, they spurred the tradition of mathematics that carries on to this day. Another big core belief they had was that every number was rational. So here's some more mathy McMathith
Except
stuff.
for the female ones.
This one. Good one. Rational in math means that it's a number you can take any number in the whole world and express it as two other numbers divided by each other. So for example, like the number 2 is rational because you can just say, oh, that's 6 divided by 3 or 10 divided by 5. Both of those equal 2, right?
Yes.
You can take two other whole numbers, divide them together, and get this number, then it's rational. So 2 is rational. 17, it's rational because, like, I don't know, that's just 85 divided by 5.
Ew.
Or 34 divided by 2. In fact, any finite decimal number is also rational, and even any repeating decimal can be expressed as a fraction, as two numbers divided. So like 0.25 is just 1 divided by 4, right?
True.
0.1 repeating is just 1 divided by 9. Both rational. So that's rational numbers. And the Pythagoreans had an intense belief that every number was rational.
That's...
Every number.
I believe it.
Well,
I know it's not true.
I know it's not true, but I believe it too.
The spiritual nature of that, I'm like so into it.
Dude, irrational numbers like rub me the wrong way to this day. Like the fact that they exist, the fact that irrational numbers exist, like the fact that you can't write out all the digits of pi or something is
right.
Like kind of feels like a signal from the universe that like you can't know everything. It kind of feels like a message like, from God.
You're wrong here.
That
you
it's
need
like,
to keep pushing.
That you like, that there are just things that will be forever like infinite beyond your reach. Like it just.
And I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, I know. Like I'm like not okay with that in a way that like makes me feel both angry and also good.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. Anyway. So yeah, so they had the same belief, except for them it was like spiritual, like dogma. So when one of their own guys by the name of Hippasus, I think it's probably Hippasus, was trying to figure out what the square root of 2 was, he kind of ran into a problem. See, they'd been trying to figure this one out for a while. After all, the Pythagorean theorem itself involves squared values, right? A squared plus b squared.
Yes.
That's right. You got it. So in order to solve this equation, you need to be able to do square roots. And so there's things like, 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. That's great. That all works out. But like, what about something super easy? The easiest thing imaginable, a unit square. A square with sides all equal to 1. Well, a unit square, if it has sides equal to 1, you do the math in the Pythagorean theorem, it has a hypotenuse equal to the square root of 2.
What?
Because 1 squared plus 1 squared equals 2 squared. So therefore, to figure out the hypotenuse, you have to take the square root. What's the square root of 2? So they need to know the square root of 2 to figure out the hypotenuse of a square that has sides of 1. Pretty simple, right?
This is why I got C's.
So basically all I'm trying to say is that figuring out the value of the square root of 2 was important to these guys. And lo and behold, this Pythagorean named Hippasus figured out, and I don't know how he figured it out, he just did, but he figured out that there is actually no way to come up with a numerical answer to the square root of 2 that is rational. You can't write it as a fraction. No two whole numbers divided by each other will ever give you the same number as doing the square root of 2. It is literally impossible. He had discovered irrational numbers, and while this was another major contribution of Pythagoreans to mathematics, let's just say the response at the time to this fact was irrational. So depending on who you ask, Pythagoras took Hippasus out on a boat.
I don't like And then his name was Tony Soprano.
No sentence that starts with "the leader took me out on a boat" ever ends well.
Oh, God.
And then he either exiled him from the school,
okay,
or from his life.
I mean, if he just went out on if two people go out on a boat and one person comes back,
then it's like, I exiled him. Yeah, totally.
That's kind of like, when Tony Soprano says, we went out on the boat and then now he's in...
Went out on the Stugats.
Now he's in Miami.
Right. He's in witness protection. So if you're keeping a resume for this guy, it looks like this. Now, mathematician, cult leader / son of Apollo, and murderer.
This is what happens when you have a golden thigh. It goes right to your head.
Heresy is no joke, you guys. So this like Pythagorean dogma that all numbers are rational just could not stand
That is the most
discovery
terrifying
that oops, they are not.
Thing I can imagine. If you're in this religion that believes that there is no irrational numbers, right?
Yes.
And then you discover that it is impossible for this to not be irrational.
Yeah, and you're encouraged to do that, right? Like part of the religion is mathematical inquiry. Like you are supposed to do that.
That is your worship.
And not only are you supposed to do that, this particular problem was like important because it was like, oh, we have this Pythagorean theorem thing we just can't solve. This is an important problem.
Like imagine being that guy where there has to be no irrational numbers, and you discover
yet there are,
that it is impossible for this to not be irrational.
It's whack.
I wish he'd taken Pythagoras out.
I know. I also always love to learn that like stuff that like we just like teach kids in grade school now was like a murderable offense when it was discovered. That's like my favorite thing about history.
Yeah.
Anyway, to wrap up about their beliefs and contributions, they were also super into music. I think you mentioned that before in the episode.
I think you mentioned that.
I think we both maybe mentioned it, which sort of makes sense if you think about it, because music and math are very closely related. They thought everything had a musical vibration to it, which is where we get the idea of like music of the celestial spheres, which, if you recall, only Pythagoras could hear. And they discovered things that are like still part of music theory today, like the notion of musical intervals they are ratios of simple numbers. So today we know that those ratios are the frequency of the pitch, like the actual sound vibration. So for example, two notes that are an octave apart have a frequency ratio of 1 to 2. Okay. So a note that is 1 octave higher than another note has twice the frequency.
Okay.
Or 1/2 the frequency. It's one or the other. You're either at times by 2 or divide by 2. I forget. And it's kind of hard to understand how important this was, actually. This isn't just about music. This is essentially the first time in the West that people were saying, maybe we can use numbers to like explain stuff in the physical world. It's almost impossible for us today to understand because everything is numbers. Everything. We take it for granted that the physical world can be described by numbers. Like, duh, of course. Haven't you seen a ruler or a measuring tape or a thermometer or an altimeter or a clock or a step counter or a food scale, a pressure gauge, a speedometer, or. But here's the thing. All that shit I just said that we just like take for granted as like we're just like raised in that world didn't exist back when Pythagoras was doing his thing. It all had yet to be invented, and the entire idea that you can take numbers and apply them to understanding how the world works was essentially invented by them. And it was largely thanks to their idea of like, hey, we like numbers, we like music, what if we combine the two? Like, it's not obvious that the basic counting of things like, hey, there's 1, 2, 3 apples should also be applicable to things like music or gravity or electromagnetism. It's obvious to us now, but again, that's largely thanks to the Pythagoreans. Let me read you one of my favorite quotes from my research. The Pythagoreans concluded that the objects within reality could be differentiated by the qualities that they have. Certain things are different shapes, colors, or sizes. These qualities range dramatically and by no means are universal. A leaf, for instance, might be green. However, not all things are green. Some things in this universe do not even possess a perceivable color. The same can be said for smell, size, or shape. The Pythagoreans concluded that the one universal quality of all things in the universe, the one thing that everything had in common, was that it was numerable and could be counted. We could perhaps imagine a universe without smell or taste. However, the idea of creating a hypothetical universe without numbers is very much impossible. End quote.
All is number.
Now, before I get to their demise, I also want to mention a few other ways in which they were influential, because it's kind of neat. The first one is very speculative, I know, just like the rest of this information on the show today, but To me, it seems kind of obvious that this guy is like totally like a model for the Jesus story. Like, now, is that just because the lives of charismatic cult leaders have similar features to each other? Or did Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John take some creative DNA from the story of Pythagoras? Impossible to answer, but fun to think about.
Yeah, what do you think? Is Jesus based on Pythagoras? And saying that, it's not totally out of the realm of possibility that Pythagoras' mythology was in turn based on an already existing
probably. Yeah.
Story.
I think there's just like kind of like a model for these like types of leaders, right? Like they have to perform miracles. They have to be son of a deity. Like you have to check certain boxes.
They have to have a golden thigh.
You have to have a golden thigh, of course. I mean, I think you have to have like some capability of like performing earthly miracles, right? So like golden thigh, talking to animals, and what was the other stuff? Listening to the spheres. Or you have to be able to multiply loaves and fishes, walk on water, and make water to wine. Like you have to be able to do some things like that.
I'm going to start telling people I have a gold thigh.
And I don't know if it's, I really don't know. I'm kind of 50-50. Part of me wants to say, no, this is just like how these stories go with these people. And part of me wants to say like, they probably took some ideas.
I mean, there's probably some tropes. Like there's probably like we already know. And I'm not saying like Jesus didn't exist. It's all a story. I'm just saying the stories of Jesus, there are tropes involved that were pre-existing tropes, like hero's journey stuff. Like
right.
There's very powerful storytelling around the story of Jesus.
Right.
I don't remember where I was going with that.
It's great. Good storytelling.
What the fuck was I going to say?
Man goes on a journey.
I don't know what I was going to say. Lost it.
You were just...
Totally lost it.
I know you're editing this episode. You have to keep all of this
I got too wrapped up in trying to make sure I wasn't saying Jesus doesn't exist. Don't know what I was going to say.
There's just common tropes, and I think we're kind of saying the same thing. It's kind of impossible to say, like, whether the tropes are, like, deliberately inherited or sort of organically
That's
inherited.
exactly what I was going to say, is that if there are similarities between the two stories, it's not necessarily a direct, like, lifting. It can just be drawing on existing tropes.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I also wanted to say, question for you, how many years before Jesus was Pythagoras alive?
About 500.
500?
A little over 500.
That's...
So there was probably, like, if we're talking about, like, tropes and religious leaders, there were people even in between Pythagoras and Jesus, too. Right. So...
That's 500 years is a lot of years.
It just struck me how similar his life story was in a lot of regards. Like, even down to the, like, his parents were traveling and, like, received word from an oracle that they, like, a son would be born unto them.
Who would have a gold thigh and be really good at math.
He's like math Jesus. Anyway, Pythagoreanism also continued on after the death of Pythagoras himself.
Oh.
It kind of factioned off until
he died?
Oh, yeah. He didn't. That's true. That's where the similarities end. He didn't resurrect.
He's the son of gods. Like, he just died and didn't come back?
He's a weak Jesus. Now, see, that's where they really improve the story.
Yeah.
Is with that whole Easter thing.
I mean, unless it's like he died and then, like, went to Mount Olympus and just, why would he come back here to these?
Oh, he
this
probably
earthly
did.
realm? He ascended.
Or he reincarnated.
I mean, that's what Jesus did. Like, he came back alive, but he ascended. Like, he's in heaven.
Right. I think he ascended up. No, I don't know.
Yeah, he did the physical, where you, like, your whole body goes up to heaven.
I thought only Mary did that.
You telling me that there's a Jesus' dead body is somewhere?
Isn't that what the Shroud of Turin? Okay, look,
no,
we're getting
the Shroud
off track.
of Turin was after he died from the cross the first time.
Oh, okay, and now he's just...
I'm just saying Jesus didn't, like, just piece out of his body, just, like, leave us slumped over like a husk.
Isn't that what we all do?
I'm saying he went up with his body.
Okay, all right.
So maybe that's what Pythagoras did as well.
So back to the after his death, there were, like, two major groups that splintered off. I won't really go into this because it's not kind of pertinent, but I will say that, like, one group was like this, like, super dogmatic, like, we are the one true Pythagorean school group, and the second one was like way more chill, that, like, went on to carry on, like, a lot of, like, the mathematical inquiry tradition. Eventually these groups faded away too.
Ooh.
Although there have been periodic resurgences in interest in Pythagoreanism from antiquity all the way to now.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there like Pythagoreanism today? Like, could I go join this
I
group?
don't know. There's everything today, so probably.
I like beans, though.
No, I'm starting the fart god thing.
What, can we bring them together?
Maybe.
Pythagoreanism
this podcast
plus
did,
beans?
Kayla.
Yes.
This we're doing the Pythagorean, the Apollo's work here. But yeah, there was like a specific resurgence of it in antiquity called like Neo-Pythagoreanism. It also supposedly heavily influenced Plato's thinking, which makes sense when you think about things like the fact that they had already discovered 3 of the 5 Platonic solids. And via Plato, of course, that means Pythagoras had a tremendous influence on all of Western philosophy that continues to this day. Finally, they totally called it on being anti-geocentrism. They believed the Earth was not the center of the universe.
Oh.
Rather, the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun all rotated around the center, which apparently was like a gigantic fire.
That's cool.
Like the Sun was just like this small ball of light, and with the Earth and the Moon rotated around this gigantic fire. But the reason we can't see the gigantic fire is because it's blocked out by like a counter Earth, like anti-Earth. There's like a second Earth. Like a counterpart Earth that like rotates around this fire with us.
Is
and
it
blocks
Bizarro
out
World?
I don't know. So like they were kind of pissing in the wind here. They didn't really get much right other than the fact that the Earth wasn't at the center. Which, to be fair,
start somewhere.
And to be fair, it did influence Copernicus 1,000 years later. But let me be clear: the reason that it feels like they're throwing darts here is because they are. The idea of using numbers to describe the universe is a great contribution, but it's just a language. It doesn't mandate that you're using science. They were not empiricists. They didn't arrive at the idea of the solar system that they had based on like controlled experimental observation of the natural world. It was more of like a vibe thing, right? Like they mathed a lot and were like, this is the most beautiful and elegant mathing. So like, it's probably this way, you guys. And like, toke a little bit. Like
if the vibes weren't right, you're getting some cement shoes.
That's right. It's very much like string theory in that regard, right? It's like, this math is so good, it has to be right, but they weren't really into experimenting.
I thought string theory was like the accepted thing now.
No, it's actually kind of going out of vogue.
It went away?
It didn't go away. It didn't go away, but it's like kind of out of vogue because like it still hasn't proven experimentally
There's
testable.
No way to test.
Yes, there is.
No, you can't test the strings. You can't test the strings.
No, not this episode. All right.
It's impossible.
As I hinted back in the beginning of the show with the whole David Koresh analogy, things were not always sunshine and roses for the Pythagoreans. I guess the alleged murder wasn't a sunshine or a rose either. But anyway, the bottom line is they had a pretty hard fall. The story basically goes that they started off small and insular, but eventually grew in number and influence around this town of Croton and got involved in politics and started becoming too powerful.
That's why we shouldn't eat the beans, guys.
And that's why they shouldn't have eaten the beans. Got too powerful. And hey, they were also this like weirdo cult religion that like was totally not cool with us because traditional values, Zeus is God, amen. So, the angry mob, or maybe it was the government, or maybe both, unclear.
Angry government.
But they went to burn down the Pythagorean school in Croton.
That's a really intense reaction.
Yeah, well, like that's what happens when
you don't have television.
Right, they didn't have TV, so they're like, let's go fucking burn down the Pythagoreans. Also unclear if Pythagoras himself survived this, but it was just the first arson.
Oh.
There was at least a second arson. I think there were more than that, but there was definitely a second one where I guess like 12 or 13 of his followers were burned alive.
Oh, no.
And one of the stories goes that he himself survived the first one and even escaped the second one, only to be chased down by a soldier. And he totally could have escaped that soldier too, except, I shit you not, he was unwilling to run across a field crop of beans.
I'm editing out the fart.
What? How dare you?
No, that's too important of a story. That... Mwah.
There were sacred beans, man. He didn't want to ruin the beans.
I respect it.
They're the magical fruit.
The more you eat, the more you learn
fart
how
out your own
to
soul.
get numbers from triangles.
That's right. All right, sources. Wikipedia, duh, as usual. Except point to me this time for giving back.
We finally have done something.
I finally changed one letter to another in one article. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, theosociety.org, classicalwisdom.com, medium.com, which I kind of feel like is like not really specific enough now, actually, because
That's just a platform.
yeah, Medium's just a blogging platform. So the article here was Pythagoreanism, the story of Pythagoras and his irrational cult by Farhan Ali Khan. Ranker.com, got to share this article title too. Oh yeah, Pythagoras was a cult leader who murdered people who disagreed with him. Allocation.com.
They teach math wrong in schools.
Humanities section of that. Yes, they do. The Washington Post, ancientorigins.net. God bless them for the fart god article. The
Fart man bless them for the fart god article.
Excuse me. Yes, thank you. The Aperion.co.uk, which is another blogging platform. So the article here was The Philosophy of Farting. I spent most of my time researching farting, if you can't tell.
You know what? You plowed through this research in a very short amount of time, and now I understand why.
Yeah, it was because I was mostly reading about farting. Sententiae Antiquitae, massline.org, and last but not least, Scientific American. So, charismatic leader.
I mean,
with the caveat that we don't know anything for certain.
We've got a theorem named after him. How long ago did he live? How many years ago?
2,500.
Like almost 3,000 years ago?
Well, it's halfway between 2 and 3.
Well, why would it be halfway if he was 500 BC?
Because 500 BC plus 2000 AD equals...
Are we 2000? Oh, yeah, we are 2000.
What is... What, okay, so he was very... Obviously, he was
Don't
a
put
very...
any of that. Sorry. Sorry. Okay, 2,000 years ago.
2,500 years ago.
And we still have a theorem named after him.
That's right.
That's some staying power. That's some charisma. You said he had people 5 years of silence to hang out with him. People were sticking around with Pythagoreanism after arson, after angry mobs, after he died. Like, I think they were changing their entire diet.
And also, I'll add to your Pythagorean theorem thing, that actually is even more of a point in charismatic leader favor because it was probably named after him due to his charismatic leaderness.
Right.
Not due to his mathing. So, ultra high. Expected harm.
It seems like for a while, 0.
It seems, I mean, they produced so many, like, named philosophers, like people that have their own Wikipedia articles type guys.
I guess it's like how...
But then also they got burnt alive.
They got arsoned to death.
But that wasn't their fault.
It
right?
wasn't their fault.
Like, would we say Waco had expected harm from the Branch Davidians because they got burned to death? Or was that like...
Well, they also had abusive practices.
Okay, yes. We would score them highly for the abusive practices, but would we score them highly on that for the burning of the compound?
Does that matter?
I don't know.
We just say expected harm.
From the cult.
Expected harm from being involved in the cult.
Yeah, I think we maybe need to have a discussion about this one.
I'm going to say medium to low.
I think so.
More on the low end.
I think so.
Just because you got burned up one time.
And like they had a bunch of weird shit going on.
And
but
just because you got taken out on a boat.
Yeah.
I don't know, actually. Now that I say
well, that one guy.
And if it was that one guy, it was potentially more than one guy. If it was like if you discovered some law of, I mean, we're getting
into... Do you think somebody else discovered it and was like, oh, I'm not going to say
anything. We're getting into other criteria now, but if you discover some law of nature that goes against the belief system of the group and it means you'll die.
Okay, but only that one really important one.
I think I'm going to say medium.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Presence of ritual. Sky high.
5 years of silence, babies.
And all those like bizarre superstitions.
No beans. You got to be a
vegetarian.
4 equals justice. 8 equals justice. 3 is boys. 4 is girls.
Or maybe vice versa. Okay, niche within society.
You tell me.
Definitely, because that was like part of why they were getting persecuted was that they were one of these mystery religions that wasn't like the dominant culture or dominant religion.
But everybody learns the Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah, well, they're ubiquitous now, but at the time they were niche. At the time, it was like, what are you doing? Assigning numbers to things in the real world?
All is
what?
number.
It's kind of crazy, but I think it is niche back then. The thing that is like so ubiquitous now that we don't even think about it, that all is number, at the time was niche. I would say yes.
I'll take it.
Anti-factuality.
Seems pretty high.
Well,
they put a guy on a boat and threw him into the water and killed him dead.
They also discovered like math.
You were just saying that they were like, they knew that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe, but it's because there's going around a giant fire and Bizarro Superman is blocking out the sun.
Yeah.
So
the fact that they were like, just because you revere numbers doesn't mean you revere empiricism. And empiricism is tied to fact. Numbers is not tied to fact. Therefore, anti-factual, yes.
Kill someone because they figure out that reality does not comport to your beliefs.
Yeah.
I think that says it all.
Life consumption, way up there.
I mean, you're living on a compound, you're getting Branch Davidian, like you are
100%.
You're not eating beans ever again.
You're giving up your belongings.
Come on.
No beans, yeah, that's true. Dogmatic beliefs, I think we've answered.
That goes hand in hand with the anti-factuality here.
Well, and specifically the like,
sorry,
dude, I know you're supposed to study stuff, but if you study the wrong thing, you're dead.
It's not even if you study the wrong thing. It's if you discover the wrong thing.
The truth in a wrong
It's
thing.
not even that you developed it, you created it, you invented it, you sought it out. It's if you stumble upon the wrong thing, you will be exiled.
Quote unquote. Chain of victims. I didn't get a sense that was
you
very
said that
high.
They didn't come off as super recruiting.
No, in fact, they came off as the opposite. They came off as like ultra selective.
We all have to learn the Pythagorean theorem
that's
now.
True. Grade school children are the chains of victims. So like, I guess that's like millions. So anyway, aside from the school children jokes, I would say the chain of victims is probably low. There wasn't really like a one person recruiting another. Final criteria, safe or unsafe exit. We answered this one. Allegedly, it was just fine to leave.
Just get out. Get out before you discover an immutable rule of the universe that goes against what Pythagoras thinks.
That's true. That guy probably should have just left. He should have started his own school. So what are we thinking?
I mean, it's what it says on the tin. It's a cult. It's a mystery religion cult and a cult.
Yeah, I think so some of these are very low, like safe exit, no chain of victims, expected harms kind of mixed, fair. But the other ones are all like so high. Like the other ones are just extreme.
If you're living on if your story becomes Jesus's story,
then you're a cult.
You're a cult.
But I'm also like, I will say this, part of me wonders how much of this stuff feels like really bizarre to us, like based on modern bias, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I sit here and I go like, the number 7 is associated with like beep borp. That's stupid. Right. And then I also go like, oh, it's also weird that Greece as a whole, that Greek people as a whole at that time thought that pentagons were magical. So
yeah.
So I kind of go like, was it really that weird
within its society,
right? Like, or am I just thinking of it as weird because these types of superstitions are not the types of superstitions that we share today? Is it just my modern bias here?
Right. There was a lot of very similar spirituality permeating the mainstream culture at the time. Like religion was a very important part of mainstream society, even more so than like the way that, I mean, Christianity touches all of our lives every day in America, but like not in the same way that I think it was back then.
Right. And like,
I could be wrong.
We have the benefit of thousands of years of like mathematical and scientific developments and research. But at the time they were like, hey, what if we use numbers for stuff? You know, like they had none of that context. So like the first people to discover numbers aren't necessarily going to also be the first people to use them exactly correctly in every single regard. Like, yeah, some things you're going to like hit it right on the mark. You're going to be like, yep, I got the octave thing right. We discovered the Pythagorean theorem.
Right.
We got irrational numbers. But then you're also going to be like, numbers have personality and like are girls. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. It's like all of these guys were fucking crazy. Like Isaac Newton had some weird ideas.
Yeah.
What's his face? Marconi was like, sound never ever goes away. I can hear the Sermon on the Mount. Like,
right.
I'm going to invent a phone to talk to a ghost. Like,
yeah. The people that come across some of these things for the first time, like it kind of, I don't know, you kind of expect them to be like not the most precise and accurate with their new tool.
Right. Right. It's like you go back and watch a genre defining movie and it feels ham-fisted. Like we just watched the first Friday the 13th genre, one of the first films to help define the slasher genre, came out very quickly after Halloween. And both of those movies, while great, are very clunky compared to the slasher movies we have today.
Yeah. So I think it's like easy for us to say like, man, they had some weird superstitions. But at the same time, it's like, were they that weird or was it like kind of expected? I don't know. I think they're a cult though.
Cult. You know what? We can at least hide behind
the sleeping with the fishes thing by itself is probably.
Yeah.
I mean, we've called people cults for less. Like, I don't
just
think that Mary Kay murdered anybody.
The fact that we refer to these guys as cults anyway, in the term of like mystery cults, so like they're a cult in that sense at the very least.
Right. Well, thank you for... Oh, do you want some beans, by the way?
I do not want those beans. I
you don't
love
want these
a bean.
beans?
I don't want those beans. I love that you had props.
I know. We've never done a prop before. Which is so appropriate for an audio format.
Happy to have props. I'm going to go figure out the length of some sides of triangles.
Plain kidney beans are not good.
No, they're not.
They're just like mush.
No.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
A squared plus B squared equals
cult or just weird squared.